Tonight we travel back in time to a land of sand, stone, and stars, a place where the river gave life and the sky held the secrets of eternity. Let your breathing slow as we drift gently into ancient Egypt, where pyramids rise from golden desert and history moves like the Nile, steady, calm, and endless. The age of pyramids. During the Old Kingdom, powerful rulers called pharaohs led the land. They were believed to be chosen by the gods to keep order and harmony in the world. Great pyramids were built as resting places for these kings. Massive stone structures rising toward the sky, built to protect the body and guide the spirit into eternity. The pyramids rise slowly from the desert floor, as if they grew from the earth itself, stone resting upon stone, layer after layer, built with patience and quiet determination. Under the wide open sky, where the sun watched each movement, and the wind carried grains of sand across the rising walls, each block of limestone was carefully cut, shaped by skilled hands, then moved across the sand, pulled on wooden sledges, guided by teams working together, step by steady step, breathing in rhythm, moving as one. Egyptian mathematics relied on fractions, doubling numbers, and careful record keeping. Scribes documented quantities of stone, laborers, food supplies, and construction progress. Organization was as important as strength. The level foundation required attention to detail. Builders may have created shallow trenches, filling them with water, using the water surface to check flatness. Because water always finds level, it became a natural measuring tool. Time itself was measured by the movement of stars. Long before modern clocks, the Egyptians divided night into segments, using star patterns to track passing hours. This allowed coordinated labor, beginning work at consistent times each day. The rising of the star Sirius marked the annual flooding of the Nile. This event shaped their calendar and influenced when large building projects could begin. Mathematics and astronomy were not separate sciences. They were woven into daily life. As the pyramid rose higher, builders adjusted ramps and supports, calculating weight distribution, understanding how mass pressed downward, each layer slightly smaller than the one below, maintaining balance toward the central axis. The precision of the pyramid suggests long-term planning. Before the first stone was placed, designs were likely drawn, measurements estimated, and resources calculated. The project may have begun years before construction started. Even the placement of internal chambers required measurement. Hidden corridors angled upward, leading toward central rooms. Their direction and slope were intentional, possibly symbolizing ascent toward the sky and the stars. Standing beneath the night sky, ancient observers saw order in the heavens. They believed earthly structures should reflect cosmic balance, so the pyramid became a bridge between mathematics and mystery, between human effort and celestial design. The stars and the sky, dark pyramid visual. The ancient Egyptians studied the sky each night. They believed certain stars were gateways to the afterlife. Passageways inside pyramids were aligned toward constellations, so the spirit of the king could rise and join the eternal sky. To them, the heavens were not distant. They were a sacred destination. Boats were buried beside some pyramids, full-sized wooden vessels, meant to carry the pharaoh in the afterlife across celestial waters. just as the sun god traveled across the sky each day. Inside the pyramid, narrow passageways were created, long corridors that led deep within, hidden chambers carved in quiet darkness, protected from heat and time, meant to guard sacred space. For thousands of years, the desert itself helped preserve these monuments, dry air and little rain, protecting the stone, allowing the pyramids to endure. Long after the names of many rulers faded from memory, travelers from distant lands stood before them, wondering how such structures were possible. Even today, visitors feel small, standing at the base, looking upward, tracing the lines toward the peak. The smooth outer casing stones once reflected sunlight, so brightly that the pyramid could be seen from miles away. It may have appeared almost glowing, like a mountain of light, standing proudly above the desert plain. As day turns to evening, shadows stretch slowly across the pyramid faces, edges soften, the heat fades, and the structure becomes quiet, almost blending into the surrounding sand. The Great Pyramid. At Giza, the most famous pyramids were constructed. The Great Pyramid, built for Pharaoh Khufu, stood taller than any structure on Earth for thousands of years. Millions of carefully cut stones were placed with remarkable precision, aligned with the stars above, a reflection of Egyptian knowledge of mathematics and the heavens. Workers were not slaves as often imagined. Many were skilled laborers, craftsmen, builders, planners, fed, housed, and organized into teams. They left behind markings and names, proof of pride in their work. Land of the Nile, pyramids begin. Ancient Egypt began along the fertile banks of the Nile River, in northeastern Africa, surrounded by wide desert sands. The river brought water, food, and life to the people. Each year it flooded and left behind rich soil, allowing farms, villages, and cities to grow. The Nile was not only water, it was the heart of Egypt. The Nile River moved gently through the wide desert, a ribbon of blue cutting through gold sand. Its waters brought life where little else could survive. Villages formed along its banks. Fields stretched outward from its edges, and the rhythm of the river shaped every season. Each year the Nile overflowed its banks, spreading water across the land. When the flood receded, it left behind dark, fertile soil, rich and soft beneath bare feet. This natural cycle allowed crops to grow, sustaining families generation after generation. Farmers rose early with the first light, walking toward their fields as the sky turned pale. They planted wheat and barley, pressing seeds carefully into moist earth, trusting the river and the sun to complete the quiet work of growth. Simple wooden plows were pulled across the fields. Oxen moved steadily through the soil, turning the earth in straight, patient lines. Children carried baskets of seed. Women gathered water from the river. Daily life moved calmly with purpose. Irrigation channels were carved by hand, guiding river water toward distant plots. These small canals ensured crops received steady moisture, even when the flood had passed. Water flowed slowly through narrow paths, bringing nourishment to every root. Dayton palms lined parts of the riverbank, providing shade and sweet fruit. Their leaves rustled softly in warm breezes. Fishing boats drifted along calm stretches of water, nets cast carefully into gentle currents, returning with silver flashes of movement. Markets formed in open spaces near villages. Farmers traded grain, vegetables, and fish. Artisans displayed woven baskets, clay jars, and linen cloth. Voices blended softly beneath the sun. Life was simple yet deeply connected, bound by river and land. Massive stone columns lined temple halls, carved with symbols and sacred stories, their height creating cool shade, their presence inspiring quiet reverence. Each block shaped and lifted with careful planning, built to endure for generations. The god Amun was one of the most powerful deities, his name meaning the Hidden One. He was associated with wind, air, and unseen force, later joined with Ra, the sun god, becoming Amun-Ra, king of the gods. Temples dedicated to Amun were grand and expansive, especially at Karnak, where towering columns formed forests of stone. Priests performed rituals each day, offering incense, food, and prayers to sustain divine balance. Religion in Egypt was woven into daily life. The gods were not distant. They were present in sun, river, wind, and harvest. Maintaining order, known as Ma'at, was the duty of both rulers and people. At one point, a pharaoh named Akhenaten changed the focus of worship. He promoted Aten, the visible disk of the sun, as the primary god. Temples to Aten were open to sunlight, without dark inner chambers, filled instead with bright open air. This shift was dramatic. Temples changed, art styles softened, images became more natural and expressive. But after his reign, traditional worship of Amun returned. The valley remained quiet through these changes. Tombs continued to be carved, painted with care, prepared long before the pharaoh's death, ensuring readiness for the next world. Priests memorized sacred texts, chanting softly within temple walls, their voices echoing between stone columns, maintaining ritual order, day after day, year after year. The Valley of the Kings remained hidden intentionally. Unlike pyramids that stood visible, these tombs were concealed to protect the royal journey beyond death. Silence and secrecy were part of their design. As the sun set over the valley, cliffs glowed with warm color, then slowly faded into shadow. The desert cooled, and the tomb entrances rested quietly beneath stars. Visitors today walk through narrow passages, seeing painted ceilings filled with constellations, images of gods guiding solar boats, symbols of protection and renewal, still preserved in the calm, dry air. Temples along the Nile reflected in the water at dusk, columns mirrored in soft ripples, incense once drifting upward, carrying whispered prayers toward the sky. The faith of ancient Egypt was steady and enduring, centered on balance, renewal, and eternal life. Temples rose in honor of unseen forces, and the valley remained a sacred doorway between this world and the next. The gods of Egypt. Religion guided every part of life. There were many gods, each representing forces of nature and human emotion. Ra was the sun bringing light each morning. Isis symbolized love, healing, and magic. Osiris ruled the afterlife and rebirth. The people believed harmony between gods and humans kept the world in balance. Valley of the Kings. In a quiet desert valley, tombs were carved deep into the rock. This place is known as the Valley of the Kings. Hidden chambers held treasures, paintings, and sacred writings. Pharaohs were buried with objects they would need in the next world: food, clothing, jewelry, and protective amulets, prepared carefully for their journey beyond life. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not an ending. It was a transformation, a passage from one state of being to another. Life on earth was only one chapter. Beyond it waited another journey, carefully prepared for during every living year. The sarcophagus. At the center of the chamber rested the sarcophagus, a stone coffin carved with sacred symbols. Inside lay the carefully preserved body of the king. The spirit known as the Ka needed a body to recognize. Rituals were performed slowly and respectfully, ensuring a peaceful passage to eternity. They believed each person had several parts of the soul, the Ka, the Ba, and the Ak, each with its own role. The Ka was life force, the Ba could move between worlds, and the AC was the enlightened spirit. To prepare for this journey, the body had to be preserved, because the spirit needed a physical form to recognize. Without preservation, the connection could be lost. So careful rituals were developed to protect the body for eternity. Mummification was a detailed and patient process, taking many weeks to complete. The body was washed and purified, then carefully treated with natural salts drawn from desert lakes to remove moisture and prevent decay. Organs were gently removed and preserved separately, placed into special containers called canopic jars, each jar protected by a different deity, guarding the liver, lungs, stomach, and intestines, ensuring wholeness in the afterlife. The heart, however, was usually left inside, because it was believed to be the center of thought and emotion in the next world. It would be weighed against a feather of truth. After drying, the body was wrapped in long strips of linen, layer upon layer. Amulets were placed between the folds, offering protection, guidance, and strength for the journey ahead. Prayers were spoken softly during the wrapping. Priests recited sacred words, invoking protection from powerful gods. Each movement deliberate, each layer meaningful. When complete, the mummy was placed inside a coffin, often beautifully decorated, then into a larger stone sarcophagus, carved with symbols of rebirth and eternal protection. The journey through the underworld was described in sacred texts, filled with gates, guardians, and challenges. The soul would travel through darkness, guided by spells and knowledge learned during life. One of the most important moments was the weighing of the heart. In a vast hall of judgment, the heart was placed on a scale, balanced against the feather of Ma, at symbol of truth and harmony. If the heart was heavy with wrongdoing, it would tip the scale, and the soul would not continue. But if the heart was light, balanced, and honest, the path forward opened. Anubis, the guardian of the dead, guided souls through the underworld. He weighed the heart against a feather of truth. If the heart was light, the soul could enter eternal peace. The ancient Egyptians believed life and death were connected, like the rising and setting of the sun, like the steady turning of the stars above. Let your thoughts drift now, as the desert grows quiet, and the ancient world rests beneath the sky. Night after night, the sun was believed to travel through the underworld, facing darkness, only to rise again at dawn. This cycle reassured the people. That renewal followed every ending. As the final rituals ended, the tomb was sealed. Silence returned. Stone walls holding stories within, protected by desert air and watchful gods. And there in quiet stillness stands Anubis, carved in dark stone, ears lifted, eyes forward, guardian of sacred passage, guide through shadow, watcher of truth. As the desert night grows calm, and the stars shine softly above, the ancient journey continues, not with fear, but with peace.